Oh, I remember when my hair was that short. Yeah, just before that video, I used to have the worst mustache. It was bad.
Oh.
I know, right? All right, Jenna. Let's go kick some ass. Hello and welcome to Talk Heathen. Today is August 4th, 2019. It is Season 3, Episode 31. I'm Eric Murphy, and today with me is...
Jenna Belk.
Jenna, thank you so much for coming again. So, since you've been on last, I heard that you're now one of the new hosts for the Atheist Experience?
I am. I'm the newest co-host to the Atheist Experience.
Wow. That's freaking awesome.
It's an honor. It really is.
That is really, really cool. I think AXP is going to do really well with you on it, and I'm proud. I'm proud to see you moving through and moving on to helping host one of our shows, and I love it. But I'm especially glad that you're here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So a couple of things happened this week, and I just wanted to kind of shoot them out before we hopped into calls.
Okay.
The first is, both of them are a little bit personal. One of them is a friend of mine who is a Christian apologist. Actually flew into town. I picked him up on Friday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was the most nightmarish situation you've ever could imagine. So I drove out there. He was going to rent a car, but they're doing road work, and I wanted him to be able to follow me so that he didn't get lost.
Where's this from?
He's from South Carolina.
Okay.
His name is Dean.
Okay.
And he's going to be walking in here any minute.
Awesome.
But, oh my gosh, I went up to the car rental area. First of all, the plane was late, so this is around, I don't know, close to 1 in the morning. I go up to the car rental area, and I thought I was in the right place. I pulled in, went over the security spikes the right way.
Okay.
The right way. But no one was there. I locked my car at the airport. It was.
Oh, wow.
It was one of the most mortifying experiences. It's hilarious because Dean looks at me and goes, "Well, do you need a ride?" Yeah, I kind of need a ride.
It makes for a funny story.
You know what? It does, and I got to own it. It was really, really fun. He was a really good sport about it. We wound up getting back. He's staying with me. We got back to my place, and he went to bed, and then we went and got my car in the morning.
Aw.
But that turned out interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And then the other thing that's going on is for people who follow Matt Dillahunty, my debates and discussions of debates have been going on his channel. But I'm going to be launching a new channel.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And I'm actually filming with Dean so that I can get footage out there. But he makes reference to a first half of a video on his channel and says, hey, check out Eric's channel for the other half.
Oh, wow.
And I don't have it up yet.
Okay.
And so I'm getting a bunch of messages from people going, where is it? I know. It's coming. I promise. I should have that info out this week or this upcoming weekend. But
What's it called?
It's kind of in the word.
Okay. We'll keep an eye out.
Yeah, definitely. I know. Oh, that was
It's
embarrassing.
okay.
Speaking of embarrassing, one other thing, and that is last week. So one of the things that happens here is we make mistakes. And I screwed something up, and I want to own it because anytime something gets messed up, the best we can do is recognize it and move forward. Mm-hmm. So we had a caller who was saying that there are differences between men and women. And he was saying women are more emotional, men are more logical. Mm. And the greater point, and the reason why I hung up, was because I did not see value in the growth of the movement in that conversation. Mm-hmm. But instead of walking through and really being able to explain that in an appreciable way, I pretty much told him to get fucked. But the fact is we do have fans who did send studies that show that during development, that men and women do have different developmental patterns on average. But saying that there's a difference, developmentally is very different from saying that there's a difference between how your brain can work and whether or not your brain has to overcome some kind of disadvantage.
Right.
And that's the fucked up thing. And the bigger point stands. And I'm not upset that I hung up on the guy. But I am holding myself to the higher standard of making sure that we get there. I also said 52% of the population was women, and that's not true. It is slightly higher women, but nowhere near that. And again, that's my screw up. But ultimately, yeah, that's what you get from it. And also, people, Eric's just signaling his wokeness. No, I'm just trying to be a decent freaking human being.
I think that you're setting a really good example right now.
Oh,
saying, hey guys, I was wrong. I think that's a really good start. So.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, but ultimately, if you think that there's a mental difference that causes women to be less likely to be logical as far as, getting to atheism or any of that, that's still horseshit. And I'll still fight that. But next time I'm not going to just say get fucked. So that said, I think it's time to move to calls. I kind of talked a lot. Did you have anyone you wanted to talk to first?
Let's go for David.
All right. David in West Virginia. You're talking to Eric and Jenna. How you doing?
Hi, David.
Hey, guys. I'm doing good. How you doing?
Pretty
doing
good.
All right. What did you want to talk about today?
Hey, so I called on the terminology. I may be getting some things confused here on agnosticism. I don't know if Jenna remembers. I messaged her on Facebook, and she invited me to call the show. I believe that was Friday. So real quick before I get to my question, maybe this will give you a better perspective on where I'm coming from.
Okay.
I became a Christian in 2009. I practiced Christianity for about 7 years. Started out after getting saved, reading the Bible every day, praying, things like that. Then eventually moved up to youth leader to where I had the chance to pastor two churches for about 2 years until I stepped down in 2016 from pastoring.
Okay.
I became a non-believer towards the God of the Bible at that time, but I suppressed it until recently of this year when I actually was open and came out that I no longer believe in the God of the Bible.
Okay.
But
congratulations.
I profess to be an apathetic agnostic. Now, here's my question, and I don't know if I'm wording this right. Do you think it's rational for somebody to be an atheist towards the religions that they possess knowledge of, while being agnostic towards religions in which they do not possess knowledge of?
I mean, yeah. So when you're talking about atheist and agnostic, we're talking about things that are not the same.
Right.
So when you talk about Gnosticism and agnosticism, you're talking about a claim to knowledge. And when you're saying, I'm an agnostic, you're saying, I don't have that knowledge, right? I don't know. When you're saying you're theist or atheist, you're saying either I accept and follow a theism, which is, a religion, or not that. And so we're not making the assertion that there's a religion, and we're saying, we don't know. I can classify myself as an agnostic atheist. I don't know about you.
I do as well.
Yeah, but I can't make claims about things that I have no idea about. And until such time as a functioning theism comes up that we're going to accept, I'm absolutely comfortable saying atheist.
The reason
Okay,
the reason that I call myself an atheist, even though I haven't actually studied other gods like Buddha or, Krishna or Vishnu or any other gods, is because I learned about a God that I was raised to believe in, and then I found out that there was no logical reason to believe in that God. And then I realized that there wasn't going to be any for any other, because they were all the same type of story. They were all the same kind of origins. They all had the same kind of fallacious reasoning. And so I realized, okay, well, until somebody comes up with proof for any of them, they're all in the same boat. So that's why I didn't really go and look into it further, because I realized that if there's no God, then why does it matter which one that God isn't?
Right, I see what you're saying. Now, in your guys' experience with talking to Christians and things like that, do you feel that once they find out or hear that you're an atheist, that most of them become closed-minded and dismiss whatever it is you have to say, whereas you was to say you're agnostic, they would probably hear or listen to more of your side of the story?
Yeah. And that's because atheist carries a lot of baggage. What did atheist mean to you when you were a believer?
So when I was in the process of deciding, okay, am I agnostic? Am I an atheist? What's going on? I had to look up on Google. I had to Google agnostic and atheist and look at the definitions. And at one point, I was like, oh, well, I can't say that there are no gods. I can't say that for sure. So I'm not an atheist. Yeah, that's what I thought. I'm still agnostic. So I called myself agnostic for a while. And then after, I forget why, but at one point I realized, okay, I need to figure out for sure. So I decided that if I really wanted to know the truth, then I needed to go and listen to both sides of the story. I'm going to listen to the theist and I'm going to listen to the atheists and hear what they have to say and try to make a decision from there. And so when I realized that I actually don't believe that there is any good reason to believe in any gods, that's when I went to the label of atheist. And then at that point, I had realized, oh my God, that's actually the label that I am, and that label carries a lot of weight. So is it important for me to come out as that label, understanding that that's going to turn people off, and mainly my family, strangers, coworkers, all kinds of people that I have to deal with on a daily basis? And I was looking up, pros and cons of coming out as an atheist. And for me, in the situation that I'm in, it was better for me to come out either way, because I see a benefit of coming out as an atheist, because I see myself as a good person. I see myself as a kind person who smiles, and I give time and energy to people, and I try to take care of people. And I think that I am a really good representative of what the opposite of an atheist is to the people that I grew up with.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. I see what you're saying.
I'd love to tie into that as well. When I was a believer, we would pray to be protected from the enemy. And it wasn't just Satan. It was atheists. Yeah, because we really did think that atheists were studying us. They were following us. Mm-hmm. And they were out to stop whatever we were doing. Even to this ridiculous degree that, there's almost this paranoia that the atheists know what you're doing and they want you to fail, and there's this entire mindset. And so when you hear atheist as a Christian, at least the kind of Christian I was like, oh, you're the enemy. Right. It's not just that you believe something different. It's that you are actively trying to hurt me. And then also the other atheist stereotypes, the atheist is angry and wants nothing to do with you. Mm-hmm. Somebody could hear, Mom, Dad, I'm an atheist, and they could take that as, I don't love you anymore, I don't want a relationship with you, and I want to hurt you. Right. And those things aren't true. But making sure that we agree on the definitions, right? If your family knows that you don't believe because you don't think that there's evidence, if they don't want to accept that means atheist, whatever. But the fact is they know you and they still know that you love them. And if you do get the chance to go, okay, you know what, this is who I am, this is what I am, and it's called an atheist, then you can make it safer for them to maybe meet another atheist somewhere down the line, and they won't feel so defensive. And in that way, start to normalize atheism.
And also try not to get too caught up on labels. Yeah. Try to just represent yourself as yourself whenever you can.
Yeah, I think sometimes I overthink things, or I don't think enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you can tell them, you can call me what you want. I still think the things that I think, and I still believe the things I believe. I'm still me, so you can call me whatever you want.
I've noticed since I've came out that first I faced a lot of ridicule from family and friends. Now, some were accepting of it, but most weren't. But right. I've also noticed that when you come out as an atheist or agnostic, whatever you come out as, most people will try to find a reason. Well, in my case, they'll try to find a reason instead of evidence. They'll try to find a reason. Well, maybe he just doesn't want to give up a certain sin. Or
I've been told that too.
I've pretty much heard it all.
Yeah, you want to sin.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot.
Yeah, I've been told that as well.
Yeah, same here.
But honestly, it's been a great step because being honest to myself is the most important thing that I've done.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage in our society to stand up like that against religion and to come out. But being yourself and being honest to yourself, I've learned that, to me, that's most important.
I agree.
Rock on, brother. I like that. Yeah.
But I really like your guys' show, by the way.
Thank you.
I watch it all the time. I also watch a lot of the Atheist Experience as well. So
Awesome.
you guys are pretty awesome support to the community.
Well, thank you. We really appreciate that, man. We're going to keep doing our best, and it's because we've got the support of people like you. So thank you for calling in, and that was a good conversation.
Yeah, it was nice talking to you.
Yeah, take care, buddy.
I appreciate it, guys. Take care.
You too.
Yeah, I got to do that plug.
Yeah,
just leading in. If you do like what we do, you can help support us. We have a Patreon if you wanted to, as little as $1 an episode, patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me, patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. It helps us not only keep the lights on, but launch new shows, get involved in the community, and do good philanthropic efforts to help that normalization and really kind of show that we are good people. We do want to work toward that shared goal of a better humanity. And so if you'd like to support us, patreon.com/talkheathen-to-me. We thank the top 5 patrons about 2/3 of the way through the episode. If you cannot financially support us, that is totally okay. We're super glad that you're here and watching. But please, you can also support us without giving money by ringing the bell under this video, hitting subscribe, and sharing it with your friends. I recently saw a video by Mr. Atheist, and having atheist in the title and description of your video is looking like it actually lowers your being able to be found on YouTube. Like, that's not good.
That's not good.
But it also means that we've got to work harder. So please, if you like what we're doing, share it, tell your friends, leave a good review on iTunes and Google Play.
Do you know how that happens?
It's some very technical algorithmic thing that is way over my head.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. All right, let's move on to talk to Sam in California.
Hi, Sam.
Hi.
Hi.
Hey, what would you like to talk about today?
Okay. Sorry, I'm really nervous for some reason.
No worries. We're good. What's up?
Anyways, so I actually been watching your show for a while now, and let me start off by saying I do believe in God.
Okay.
But as I'm watching your show, I'm starting to question a lot of things, is the best way to put it. But it's still kind of hard to let go. So I was just wondering, how you came to believe that there is no God.
You want to go first?
Sure. I actually don't believe that. I know, right? So, a couple things. The first is you said you're having trouble letting go. That's totally understandable. We don't always accept things in our lives for rational reasons. And when you're emotionally attached to something, when you've been raised up in something, and that's part of this, world that you live in, detaching in that way is tough. It's painful. And I totally get it. But the other thing is, I can't actually say there is no God because I don't know every definition. I have not been able to explore it. Nobody's been able to prove to me sufficiently that there is one, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to say that there's zero possibility that somebody could prove that tomorrow. And so if somebody proved that tomorrow, okay, there's the proof. But until then, I'm going to live my life like the same way that I live my life with everything else. If I don't believe there's Bigfoot, I'm going to live my life, thinking there's no Bigfoot. If I haven't been shown aliens or fairies or leprechauns or whatever, I'm not going to live as if they exist. I'm just going to, I'm an Bigfootist as well. And that it doesn't seem that big a deal when you're talking about Bigfoot, but because our culture is legislating religion and because people separate their families because of religion, it becomes a big deal. And that's why saying you're an atheist holds so much more weight. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Does that help? I mean, and
A little bit.
I can give you another example, and I've said it on the show a whole bunch of times, but what if somebody said to you, God is like the universe, man. Like, we're just the universe understanding itself, therefore we're part of that God. I say, okay, well, does it have any qualities? Is it thinking? No, it's just the universe. Okay, well, obviously the universe exists, so, okay, your definition of God exists. I think it's silly, and I think it's a word game, but kind of there it is.
Which God do you believe in?
I'm a Christian.
Okay.
Baptist.
Okay.
Why?
There's a really long explanation, but the shortest one I can give you, just so we don't take forever, is that's how I grew up.
That's a lot. That's a good
Baptist.
response.
Yeah. I wasn't always Baptist. I mean, I grew up in Africa, so of course I grew up Orthodox, then I changed to Protestant, and then I ended up Baptist. But I pretty much from day one of my life on earth, I've always been Christian.
So it's interesting. You'll change religions, but the God stayed the same, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you know that there are people that believe in different gods, correct?
Yeah.
Like not only different religion, but completely different gods. Do you believe in those?
Like Muslim and Jews, only two religions, really. It's either Muslim or Christian.
Actually, those are both Abrahamic. They both kind of stem from the same stories. But there are other... Yeah.
It's actually usually pretty much from the people that I've talked to, they're the same God.
Yeah. I mean, so the Abrahamic faiths go back to the Torah, right? And so you get Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And all three of those kind of share a lot of similar stories and stuff like that. But you also have other religions. You have native indigenous religions that never took anything from Abrahamic faiths. You have...
Zeus.
Yeah. You have ancient Greek and Roman. Yeah, you have the Norse mythology with Thor and Odin. And in the Far East...
Not religion.
I'm sorry?
That's mythology, not religion.
Those were
mythology
religions.
used to be religion.
Yeah, those were religions at the time. Yeah. In fact, I actually am friends with someone who calls himself a heathen, but in a religious sense actually still follows the Thor and Odin and all of that. Yeah. They're out there.
Okay.
He's a nice guy.
Oh, okay, well.
So do you believe in any of those gods?
No.
No? Why not?
I don't know. I find the stories really ridiculous. Like,
what's ridiculous about them?
Okay, there's somebody in the sky that controls thunder. I can explain thunder. I'm actually a science major, so I can tell you why thunder happens or why the ocean recedes and comes, like the tides. I can explain all that. So
what about if we can explain evolution?
That's the thing. I actually do believe in evolution, so I'm not going to argue with you there.
So do you agree that the Bible doesn't agree with evolution?
No, you can actually believe in God and believe in evolution. It's just a matter of who started what.
No, I'm not talking. I'm sorry. I'm not. I didn't say you. I said the Bible. The Bible doesn't agree with evolution, correct?
I don't think so, but I've had my pastor explain to me how Genesis is actually God's version of the evolution. We just call it, it's complicated.
Why would God have a different version?
You tell me. I don't actually understand.
I mean, you're the one that believes it. I don't.
Well, her pastor, at least.
Oh, yeah, right.
You know, and can I also throw out there the story that I told at the top of the episode where I said I accidentally locked my car at the airport. That's ridiculous, but the fact that it's ridiculous doesn't make it not true.
Right.
So whether or not something's ridiculous really doesn't have any bearing on whether or not it's true. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Jenna's you're on the chord. I mean, so what is it that's
So do you understand how to us, people who don't believe in any gods, they both might look ridiculous to us? Does that make sense to you? Does that look... I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're not true. We have to investigate it, and upon investigation, it appears not to be true. But
how do you know it's not true? Is my question.
Sure.
So that's the thing, is I can't tell you that I know that it's not true. But what I can tell you is that I've looked into it, and I really wanted to believe it, because like you, everybody that I had ever known and met believed it. And so I thought, well, they can't all be wrong, right? So I believed it because everybody else did. But then at some point, I decided that I really wanted to know, and I couldn't give a better answer for why I believed it than, well, everybody else does. So I really looked into it, and I tried to listen to the reasons that people do believe and the reasons that people don't. And I found that the reasons that people don't believe it are much more convincing to me and sound much more logical after studying what logic actually is and learning that logic does not equal something that just makes sense. So there's actual... I'm sorry?
Could God be outside of logic? Because,
why would we assume that?
How could anything be outside of logic, Sam?
There are things that we just can't explain, right?
But
there's tons of things that we can't explain, but why would we say that then we can explain them? I stop it. We just can't explain. There are things that we can't explain.
Or have not yet explained.
Right.
And, there are things in the Bible that we can prove are not true. We can prove them. Mm-hmm. We can absolutely prove them. There are things that happen in the Bible, like miracles, that absolutely, somebody does not rise from the dead after 3 days.
People don't actually walk on water.
Yeah. If you look at the Old Testament, right, you've got the Tower of Babel. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen. You have
the flood.
The flood, right. You can also investigate when you have that many people leaving Egypt in the Exodus through the desert for 40 years. There are actually experts who manage large populations and what it takes to support a large population over that kind of time. There would be mountains of evidence, mountains of things left behind by those people. And yet we haven't been able to find evidence. And we understand that you accept evolution.
That was over 6,000 years ago, though.
Hmm?
That was over 6,000 years ago. Exodus happened way back, maybe the first 1,000 years that the Bible recorded.
But that still doesn't make it true. We've explored it. We've looked. We've investigated. There is no archaeological evidence to support a massive population going through the desert for 40 years along that path in Egypt. It's not there. A global flood.
Have you ever looked for the evidence yourself? Have you ever looked online and found out what evidence we have for any of these different things that we've named? The flood, the migration, burning bushes, walking on water, all of these things.
Adam and Eve.
Have you ever looked into actual explanations or evidence for any of these claims that are in the Bible, but nowhere else?
Yes, and that's where the problem is. It's I can't find it, but then I'll go to my pastor and I'll ask him. And his, to summarize his answer would be basically believe because you have faith that God is real, which is I can't believe something just by having faith, and I need something that I can explain why I believe it. But at the same time, just saying I don't believe is literally going to basically end my life as I know it.
No, it won't. It won't. I'm evidence that your life will not end just for saying you don't believe.
You're still going to be you. You're still going to love the people you love. You're still going to eat the same foods.
In fact, it's pretty freaking invigorating.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually a weight off of your shoulders when you can finally say honestly to yourself, oh my God, I don't believe this shit. There's no reason to believe it. And it's okay, well, wait. So now if I don't have these priests and pastors and all these people to tell me how to live my life, well, how am I going to live it? Well, the cool thing is you get to decide. You get to make it up as you go. You get to make up the rules. You don't have to have somebody dictating rules to you. Nobody, literally nobody, just you. Isn't that awesome?
And also,
Sounds awesome.
I mean, it is.
well, and also the fact that we're humans, you want to, be happy, and you want the people you care about to be happy. And so even if you're making your own rules, they are pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. In fact, as we look at it, I see these atheist populations, and we're law-abiding, family-loving, we help our community. I mean, it's not that you're walking around murdering people, it's that you're no longer doing good things because you're told you have to.
Exactly.
Because if you're told you have to, you can't really take responsibility for it. You get to say, oh, well, I did it because I was told. Mm-hmm. But if you go out and do something good in the world and you weren't told, you did it to do it, all of a sudden you did something good.
That actually reminds me of something I want to bring up. Eric and I were talking the other day about, you gave me a thought experiment about if you had a superpower, right? Mm-hmm. And if you have this superpower, then you can heal anybody.
Just by touching them.
Then do you now have an obligation to the world to heal people, right? And I kind of thought about it, and I was like, well, I don't think you do. No matter what ability you have an obligation to yourself first, right? So the fact is that if you have that ability and you decide to go out and help people, I think that's a beautiful thing. But if you have this ability and you decide that you can't for any reason, I think that that's fair and valid. But that just makes it, when you do go out and contribute, that makes it even more beautiful because it's off of your own free will. It's off, if it's off your own volition.
we can argue about free will another time.
But it's a choice that you made.
Well,
it's not that you were being dictated to by superiors.
I'm with you on that. All right.
I'm sorry.
That is such a can of worms.
It's a separate conversation.
I'm sorry. Say again, Sam?
Jen, I wanted to ask you something.
Please.
You said your family was religious. Mm-hmm. Did they disown you?
Some people have.
And you're okay with that?
It hurts. But I mean, I can't do anything about it right now. I can hope that in the future they might get used to it and realize that they maybe miss me. I don't know. It's possible. And hopefully they'll reach out to me. Hopefully they'll change their mind. But I'm not going to sit around holding my breath. If they want to show me that they would rather have Jesus in their life or, this imaginary friend that they've made up over me, fine.
Yeah.
That's your decision. But I'm not going to do that to you.
Right.
And I'm going to be here when you come back, if you come back, and, look at it then.
Okay, follow-up question. Would it be wrong just to pretend because you don't want to lose family?
I don't think that there's a black and white answer to that. I think that it's up to you. It would depend on, are you okay with the possibility of losing these people? Because it is a possibility. But there's also a possibility that you won't. And I came from a very, very religious background, and while most of them don't really talk to me anymore, only a couple of them have actually left me and blocked me. And over time, it's only been a year, less than a year, but over time, slowly people are coming around. So I think that the world is changing. I think that people are growing up and making discoveries and being open-minded, and I think that's all we can do.
Can I interject?
Please.
If somebody's tying their love to you based on how you're behaving in a religion, that's really messed up on their part. You can't own other people. You can't make other people's decisions for them. They get to do that. And ultimately, if they want to make that choice, that's their choice. But saying, oh, well, giving somebody the excuse, oh, you're saying you'll only love me if I do X, Y, and Z, that's abuse. That's emotional manipulation. You get to make your choice, and it is okay that you make your choice for your reasons. But don't allow people to push you around. You can say, hey, you know what? This conversation with my family is not worth losing them, so I'm just not going to bring it up around them. Totally fine. You know, I know people who still go to church and are atheists because they really want to keep that relationship with their family. None of us are judging. None of us. But there are people who've come in and said, you know, my family was supporting me and they kicked me to the curb and I have nothing now. And if I repent and go back to church, then I might not be homeless. That is abuse. And so I just want to point out that difference that, you can't own other people. It's just not, you know, they get to make their choices and they get to be fucked up.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I mean, it is a parent's job to guide the kids, so I wouldn't blame a parent for basically saying you either believe and you follow my guidance or you make your own way, which is probably what
I understand why you wouldn't blame a parent for giving an ultimatum, because to you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to you it seems like they care enough about you that they want you to do it their way or no way, correct? Like, it seems like they care that much.
Yeah, they don't want you to go to hell.
Right.
This is what my parents would do, but I don't really think I believe.
Right.
I don't let them down either.
No, I'm talking about disowning. There is no point where it is okay that a parent would withhold their love over a thing. You don't do it.
That's
you don't
the thing, is that I've experienced that. And while I understand, so just to validate them, yes, I understand that to them, they think that they just love me that much, that they can't allow me to go the other way because it's obviously wrong, because it's not their way and they don't know anything about it and it's dangerous, and they just love me enough to give me this huge decision because that's the only way that they can possibly get me to come back to their side. And I get that. But from my side, I love them enough to let them believe the things that they do, even knowing the harm that I see, right? They see harm, I see harm. I love them enough to allow them to do whatever they want to do, and I will love them no matter what. And that's the difference that I see now in our two different shoes. I think I love them more because I'm accepting them either way. And they think that they love me more because they're giving me an ultimatum.
And I would contend that you are the better person.
Thank you.
I just no. I understand you're doing that, and it's wonderful that you are. And so long as you want to do that, awesome. But if the time ever came that you said, you know what, I'm done here.
Right. Oh, that's absolutely different. Is when you come to that point where you have to set a boundary,
then
you
it's
have to set
understandable.
that boundary.
And please don't think that you have to keep on going past where you're comfortable.
Absolutely. See, that's the thing, is breaking free of religion, I finally was able to see from the outside how abusive my family dynamic was. Not each individual person, but just the way that we treated each other, the way that we parented, the way that we talked to each other. It was harmful and it was abusive, and I was not happy. And so when then I started being rejected by these people simply because I changed my mind, I was shocked. I was like, I thought these people would be on my side. I thought these people would reach out to me in desperation, trying to help, trying to offer me advice and try to, be more involved. And instead I'm getting silence, I'm getting judgment, I'm getting assumptions, I'm getting talked down to. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm just now realizing that this is how y'all have talked to me my whole life, and I deserve better. And so that has forced me to leave that family unit in most cases and go find better fucking people.
Amen. Last question. How would you broach the subject with Christian parents?
How would what? I'm sorry?
How would you bring up the topic with a Christian parent?
My Christian parent or a different, someone else's Christian parent? Who's his parent?
In general.
It totally depends.
My parent.
So generally what I've found when it comes to this kind of news is if you sit them down and go, Mom, Dad, we need to have a talk, then you're setting this massive anxiety line. And when I'm an atheist, yeah, but if in the course of conversation, I don't really believe that, or odds are if you've gotten to this place, you've probably talked to them at some point about, well, how do we know that? And they might have given you an answer, but if you were to say, you know, I really don't believe, it would be upsetting, but it wouldn't necessarily carry with it the baggage of atheists. But if you think that they understand what an atheist is, then say, you know, in the course of conversation, well, actually, I'm an atheist. Wait, you are? Well, I've been that way for years. You didn't know? I mean, that's okay. Yeah, no, it's good. You know, what are we doing Tuesday? It's totally different when you anchor that expectation to, no, this is just who I am. I'm still me. I still love you. I still want a relationship with you. I just don't believe. It changes things in a fundamental way that makes it a whole lot easier.
I completely agree. That's a really good way to do it, is to just kind of just slip it in conversations the way that you think differently. When somebody says, oh, well, you know that, you know, Jesus is this Lord and Savior, right? And just be like, I don't know. You know, just kind of slowly, just let them know what you think in an honest way. But what I did is I ended up, I have a huge family, and I have a huge, you know, group of people in my life that I was religious with. And so when I came out and Thanksgiving was coming up and I knew I was going to see a bunch of these people, and I was like, okay, well, I don't really have time to go around and talk to everybody. And I wanted to honestly get it over with because of the amount of stress that I was under, simply knowing this about myself and knowing that I was going to get reactions and all kinds of stuff. And so I put it on Facebook. I found a meme that said something about, you know, they told me to use my brain, the brain that Jesus gave me, and it's ironic that I became an atheist. And I said something like that on Facebook. And so looking back, that may not have been the best way to do it because of the way that people have just stopped talking to me or reached out to me in a very condescending way, you know, things like that. But at the same time, it did get it out of the way. It did give people a chance to start healing. And now, almost a year later, we're starting to have the opportunity to possibly start moving on. And I don't have to wait 5 years to start doing that. So just kind of weigh whatever it is for you and the pros and cons of each thing and how to do it. And just ask different people, how did you do it? What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? And just judge for yourself. And that's the cool thing. That's the whole point of thinking for yourself, is you get to decide. I'm not going to tell you, I'm your priest and you have to do what I said because it's the only way to do it. No, you get to decide. That's the whole point.
Well, thank you so much. This actually helped a lot.
Good.
Yay. Happy it helped. And we're really glad you called. Thank you, Sam.
And let us know how things work out and if you change your mind.
Yeah, please do.
Will do.
Thank you.
Take care. That was a good call.
I think it was a good call.
Yeah. Let's move on to another Christian. Noah in Arizona. A version of Christian. Noah in Arizona, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
absolutely. I know as a Mormon, you still call yourself a Christian. Other Christians may not. They might, you know, I say Christian adjacent, maybe. But
yeah.
But what did you want to talk about?
The Church of Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry, excuse me. Long story short, I was talking to one of my employees a while back.
Hey, Noah.
And
just a quick question: are you on speakerphone, or are you talking to us on? Okay, we've got a little bit of echo. I just wanted to see if we can try and mitigate that a bit.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me try to fix it.
Thank you.
All right, is that better?
We will find out. All right, go ahead. Sorry, man. Go ahead.
Okay, so one of my employees made a bet with me, and I lost the bet, and they had me call into the Atheist Experience.
I like it.
And he's
what happened?
And, well, I talked to, I forget her name,
Tracy,
and there was another guy named Phil there.
And
Tracy Harrison, Phil Session.
Tracy, that's it.
Okay.
So I talked to her, and now that I listen back to, because my wife was showing me what I actually did, because I didn't know what I was doing, and I feel like I sounded like an idiot. So I, since I had talked to her, I started listening to your guys' show, and I started listening to
like other people, other academics, and like I read the God Delusion by Richard Dawkins.
Good book.
Yeah, he's very well written. Anyways, now I'm questioning everything, but to say questioning something I hadn't ever done before,
right?
Yeah,
means that I just completely 100% doubt it.
Okay.
And I'm just kind of stuck now in a vacuum of disbelief, and it's kind of like you're a soldier in an army and you're all with everybody, and then suddenly you're not, and you're still amongst all of them.
Right.
What do you do?
yeah.
And I'm not sure if you know many Mormons, but they're very tight-knit. I mean,
Oh yeah, you get your entire
everything in
community.
my family, community, everything is Mormon. So.
I totally understood. In fact, there are a ton of incredibly active ex-Mormon groups just for that reason. You know, a lot of Jack Mormons. Definitely look into that. We also have a Discord channel if you want to hop in and talk to people.
Freedom from Religion.
FFRF, yeah.
FFRF.com or .org?
.org.
.org.
And you could call the Hotline Project. But really, ultimately, the advice that I have to give you, Noah, is build yourself a community. Build yourself a system, you know, have friends. Find people that you can reach out to and talk to. And the good thing is it's 2019, so you can do that a whole lot easier than anybody has been able to in the history of humanity before, which is fantastic. But build that up, because
I mean, I don't know what to tell my kids.
You don't necessarily have to tell them anything right now.
Yeah, take your time. It's not like we're threatening eternal damnation if you don't do it in a certain time frame. We're just...
No,
you can give yourself some time to get over the idea of it and get yourself used to it, and then get comfortable, and then over time just start asking them the questions that you asked yourself.
I mean, where you're at, Noah, is this... It's existential crisis. You're in existential crisis. What does it mean? Where does it go? I used to have a purpose. Is there no purpose? What does that mean? Is life worth living? How do I behave? Where do I go? Where do I get my community? How do I tell people that I love them? I used to say, I'm going to pray for you. So what do I say if I say, I care about you, or I hope things go well? I used to say, God bless at the end of calls. I got to figure out how to re-talk to people on calls. I used to say, bless you, when somebody sneezes. Does that make me a hypocrite if I still do it? I mean, there's so much. There's so much, and especially being a Mormon, because it's so sheltered. I totally get it. Look up anomy. Anomy has to do with morality. And when you lose that structure, there's this, it's like you're falling. Your stomach is up in your, is raising up in your chest, and it's light, and it's terrifying, and it hurts. And it's incredibly personal. But don't do what I did, because I didn't reach out. We do have other people here who can talk to you. There are people online, there are communities, there are tons of ex-Mormon communities especially that are going to be like, no, we got you. Because we are building that together.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about this, and in this type of situation, I've never been actually in this type of situation. I don't know why I would say that.
Right.
It's in some situation I would pray about it. Of course, I'm not gonna. And I honestly don't know why I'm talking to you guys about this, other than I kind of feel connected to you guys now because I've listened to a lot. I carpet clean all day. That's what I do. I own a carpet clean company.
Okay.
So in my headphones, I'm listening to it,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of makes sense what you guys are saying. It doesn't kind of, it does make sense. The good thing about Mormons is, they already 100% reject all the other religions, gods, everything, and in a kind of a vicious way. So when Mormons give it up, I have no idea how they'd ever become religious again.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
So, right. I saw that. Like, I'm not going to go join another church. I mean, why would I do that?
Well, but the thing is that if it's the church that you miss, if it's the music or if it's the community or if it's the something to do on Sundays, if it's the donuts, you can replace that with anything you want.
And if it doesn't hurt to go, you can still go.
Right. You can still find community. You can still play the music. You can still...
But let me give you an example. I was in Sunday school today because I gave up my position as elders quorum leader, or elders quorum president, which is a pretty high position.
Okay.
I gave that up because I didn't want to do that anymore because of how I feel about this stuff, which they're used to. Yeah. You can give an excuse, work, kids, whatever.
Right.
And so I'm sitting in Sunday school, and they're kind of bickering over what Jesus did as a kid.
That's all up for debate, isn't it?
Right. How, was he perfect? Did he make a mistake? Did he backtalk to his mother? And I was, thinking about how ridiculous it is and how I just didn't want to be there. And I felt ashamed for being there, which I shouldn't have. I understand that. I understand I shouldn't be beating myself up. And there's a lot of people dealing with this every day. But I did feel like, oh my God, I can't believe this conversation is going on around me right now.
Yeah.
And I did eventually just walk out.
So I got a note from the back. So when we finish this call, I'm going to pop you back on hold, and they're going to show you how you can get in touch with our Discord. The Discord is asking for you and want to talk to you. And I made the mistake a few weeks ago of letting someone go when I should have made sure that they got to talk to us and got in contact. So after this call, if you don't mind staying on the line, I'm going to pop you back on hold, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Going back to the walking away aspect, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling kind of empty, but not because of what you think, probably.
You're talking to people who went through it. I guarantee we don't think that.
Yeah. I'm not I'm lacking, that, but it's kind of like when you do something for so long, it's kind of like getting fired from a job, I guess,
Yeah.
You get fired and you walk away pretend you didn't do anything wrong. I don't know.
Or pretend it was a horrible job.
Right. Yeah, but you still got fired.
Yeah, but it's a horrible job.
And I lost my horrible job, but now I don't have a job.
Yeah.
And what do you do? Because that's all I do is just try to provide. And
so real quick, the only problem with your metaphor is that you don't need a job in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that it may feel like you lost your job, now you need to go find a new job. No. Try living without one, metaphorically speaking.
And your job might not have to be something boring, as far as this is concerned.
Exactly.
It could be rock climbing. You could go hiking. You could
learn a new instrument. A language.
Play video games.
Yeah.
Learn a language. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
There are tons and tons and tons of things that, we fill our time with that are meaningful to us, that we build communities around. I think one of the best examples I have of that is a friend of mine, Vern, the Lord of Levels, our audio engineer, used to do a lot of engineering and robot building. And his stories are awesome. And the community and all of that around amateur robotics is so freaking neat.
You can look into philosophy and try to learn why people believed this stuff in the first place.
Yeah, that's
my go-to.
Yeah,
epistemology, right? Why did we believe this ever?
So
here's the thing.
When I took
hold Oh, no, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you're
No,
good.
I was totally going to take the conversation off down a rabbit trail, so that's okay. It's a good thing.
Well, the thing is, I've got a pretty heavy science background, and so I understand biology.
Mm-hmm.
That was my minor, and mathematics was my major. And so I understand all that stuff, and I'd love to delve into it. And in fact, when I was a church leader, not that it matters, but I was always pushing towards evolution, things like that, which it was never in any doubt for me. And, believe it or not, Mormons don't push against that whatsoever. They don't fight that whole evolution. I've heard a lot of your shows now, and I hear people trying to fight against science. I'm like, why would you do that?
Well, I find it interesting that you're talking like math and biology. I'm talking psychology and philosophy.
But both,
you know what I
are
mean?
good.
But he's saying that he has a lot of experience with math and biology already.
Oh, okay.
So I'm
Just
like,
kinda
so
broaden your
leaving the
horizons.
religion, maybe try delving a little bit more into the psychology and philosophy of it, because I know that when I was in a religious upbringing, we didn't have a lot of psychology and philosophy talk.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know what the word epistemology meant. I'd never heard it before.
Oh.
But hopefully that helps. And,
Well, a lot of the
Noah?
A lot of the LDS folks, when you start, like if I went and talked to my bishop today about this, he would talk about how the adversary is pushing me away and yada, yada, yada. It would be like that. And I would just kind of look at him blankly as, okay, I'll pray about that, but I would walk away again.
Yeah.
But they do believe that you should, I don't know, psychologically, they get in your head.
Yes, they do. But Noah?
Yeah.
We're starting to ramble on a little bit.
Okay.
I appreciate the call. I hope it helped, and I hope you call back. I think I'm going to move on to the next caller while we still have time.
Okay. I appreciate you.
Thank you for calling.
Appreciate you too, man. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
What a nice guy.
Right? Ooh, another thing. 2 weeks ago. I think it was 2 weeks ago. Somebody was on, and they were a Christian, and we had a good conversation. And at the very end, they go, okay, God bless, and hung up.
Oh.
And I got so many messages. People were going, that jerk, how dare they? And then I got a message from that person, and it was, holy moly, I was so embarrassed. I didn't mean to do that. And just be charitable for 2 minutes, Give them the benefit of the doubt. Before we move on to the next call, I'd like to thank our top 5 patrons. Our top 5 patrons today are Neil Bradley, Rachel J., Charlotte Crum, Desert Heathen, and Dr. Funkenstein. It is because of your donations that we're able to keep the show going. If you'd like to become a patron, go to patreon.com/talkheathen to me. And I'm going to move on to the next caller. Let's go with Mike.
The truth now.
Mike? Sorry. Still talking to the call screener. Let's. Who do you want to talk about? Who do you want to talk to?
Let's go with Theo.
Theo is on 6. Theo.
Hi,
Hey
Theo.
guys, what's up?
Hey, you're talking to Eric and Jenna. What's up? What would you like to
Yeah,
talk
I'm a
about?
long-time fan.
Oh, thank
I'm
you.
also atheist and skeptic.
Okay.
Congrats.
Yeah.
I was actually on both Discords, on Street Epistemology and on ACA, but I got banned because I'm so opinionated. But I don't think I'm really disrespectful or anything. I think people have a problem with universal ethics. That's my topic.
Universal ethics.
Okay.
Could you define universal ethics?
Yeah, it's basically an ideal we make that we think there must be justice unheard of subjective opinion. I would say that's exactly what we humanist skeptics are promoting. Like trans rights, like freedom of sexuality, the human rights.
I missed your definition.
Yeah, the definition kind of went over my head a bit. Could you say that again?
The definition for what?
Universal ethics?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's an ideal, an abstract we try to approach
Okay.
for getting fairness for everybody,
Okay,
unheard of subjective.
So getting fairness for everybody, you said unheard of subjective. This might be a language barrier, but that doesn't make any sense to me.
You think that doesn't make sense?
No, I mean I think that this might be a language barrier. It might be, it's like potato, airplane, pineapple, fair.
Let's try it with mathematics.
Well, no,
mathematics.
I'm asking you to give me a different explanation. Can you explain the definition in a different way using?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Okay.
Look, if you take mathematics as example, let's say, is mathematics subjective or objective for you?
Well, it's the same for everybody, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's math is true, unheard of subjective opinion. And that's what I claim is the same for secular ethics.
True, unheard of, subjective opinion. Okay, so can I rephrase this? Sure. So are you saying that there is an ethic out there and that you are promoting ethics that have nothing to do with people's opinions, but just are what they are? It's not subjective.
No.
It's not
It's
subjective.
more like, if I may, Matt Dillahunty, he always used the Rawls wheel of ignorance. That's basically the model to get you to an objective ethics.
Well, it's not. It depends on what your goal is, and yeah, if we all agree on the same goal, then we can objectively determine what is the most ethical thing to do. But when you bring up mathematics, there's a unique problem, and that is you can't go from is to ought.
That's exactly what I think is not true.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's why I'm always in debate with the guys, with the moderators on the ACA and on the street epistemology.
Sure.
And they just, I think you need to fulfill your burden of proof to show me that there cannot be objective ethics.
Okay.
Otherwise, that's a claim you cannot hold.
Okay. So my understanding of ethics is that we need to agree on what the goal is. And once we agree on what the goal is, then we can keep moving forward. Why do we agree to what the goal is? If the degree, if
to me.
Yeah, like human well-being or human flourishing, right? Maximizing happiness and minimizing pain and suffering. If we were to pick one of those, we can move forward and talk about ethics in a way that we understand.
Absolutely.
But choosing that goal, how is that objective?
Because we choose the goal from nature. Rawls' wheel of ignorance is basically you take all the natural players and make justice rules as if you don't know which player you are.
Okay, the veil of ignorance, yes.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. You can still have an ethic that is totally off the wall. So let's say that I think that, I make up a religion around donuts, and you've got to eat donuts every day or else you're going to go to hell. Then if I was creating this society using the veil of ignorance, I would be making it pretty donut-centric because I would want to give everybody the best opportunity to go to this heaven. Let's say I had a goal of, convincing people that they need to turn to Christ. Then what I would probably do is use the veil of ignorance and go, okay, I want to, just to explain the veil of ignorance for people who don't understand what that is. The veil of ignorance is the idea that when you're creating a society, if you want it to be the most just and fair, create it recognizing that you do not get to pick who in that society you get to be. So you could be at the top or the bottom. And when you do that, you're more likely to get fairness. And so what I'm saying is if somebody thinks that the big goal should not be human flourishing, it should be conversion, then they're going to instill a theocracy. They are still using the veil of ignorance, but because they have a different goal, it's going to be different, which is why it's still subjective.
Wait, what? They can use the veil of ignorance to get to Christian values?
No,
I'm aware of.
They're informing their goal on their Christian values. So
no, but that goal isn't even in the veil of ignorance.
no, and so when you're talking about human flourishing, right? When you're using the veil of ignorance, you're talking about building a fair society, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're building this fair society, what is fair? What is the objective? If we say the objective is human flourishing, then we can objectively come to a whole lot of decisions, and I'll probably follow you most of the way through it and agree with you.
I would say.
Now,
Human flourishment.
Now, the goal is not necessarily that. You're assuming that what you would put there is what everybody else would think of.
No.
Okay, then why is human flourishing necessarily the result?
Let me try it from this side. The theists argue from objective morality through divine morality, right?
Divine command, yeah.
Divine command, exactly. And the new modern law does actually put the divine aside and go for secular natural law. That means the nature is our goal, preserving nature, preserving us.
Yeah, who decided that?
Yeah, that's still subjective, dude.
Well, you can say it's subjective, but it's intersubjective for all humans, you know.
And so because you are positing a claim, you need to back up that claim. I gave you the explanation as to why I believe it's subjective, because you still need to agree on it. And if you're agreeing on something, you're still making that choice, and it's not objective. You can't do it like you could do math. And because of that, is what it is.
Need to agree on ethics.
Okay, well, let's just say that I can point at humans and go, okay, humans are destroying the planet. The existence and continued growth of humanity is causing species to completely die out and entire ecosystems to just go away, that they're warming the planet through this pollution that is causing global warming, that they are irrevocably changing the biodiversity of the planet. And so the right thing to do would be to severely limit the human population. Would you imagine
that's necessary?
Well, what I'm saying,
I don't think that's the necessary.
No. Theo, I'm giving you an example. That's all. It's just a thought experiment.
Yeah, no.
I'm not asking you to agree. I'm just saying I can give you a reasonable idea here that I could say that and say the objective thing to do is to kill a whole bunch of humans.
Well, I have an objection to that.
Why?
Because that's not the necessary mean to prevent the harm we do to this planet and to ecology, I would say.
That is a conversation
we have science, we have biology, we can check out what's sustainable and what not. I think we can do a lot better than killing ourselves.
You can lead a horse to water, but that doesn't mean you can make it drink. I'm sorry, I just backed up the snap, didn't I?
Well, but it seems like you're claiming that sustainability is an objective goal.
For us, life, who wants to live, yeah.
Well, but why do you think that?
We want to sustain. You have grandchildren. You want to.
Well, but there are people that don't.
Happy life.
No.
Sorry.
There
are people that don't.
Yeah, sure. There are also inconsiderate and unethical people.
Not necessarily. I mean, that's an assumption.
Do you think I'm inconsiderate and unethical?
No, not really.
Okay,
but
then.
I think it's this is-ought problem is a false dilemma. That's exactly the problem of many skeptics. Activists, I think.
And I agree.
Rationality Rules does the same thing. He has a video completely failing on universal preferable behavior.
I haven't seen that.
You are promoting universal preferable behavior in the way that you are making yourself strong for LGBTQ rights. And we both agree those are really objective ethics. It's not a question, it's not subjective. We have to grant the rights to those people.
I agree. And it's because we agree on the goal.
Right.
Theo, you're assuming something that I have not agreed with you on.
Which is?
Which is that we necessarily are going to come to the exact same objective to base that ethic on. I just gave you the argument from Thanos, just, for that reason. But it's still,
but
it
it's
stands.
not a good argument as long as I can say we can fix the world better without killing people.
But then that's a conversation that you can have with Thanos. I'm trying to give you examples to show that.
I'm doing it with every Thanos that calls himself humanist but says there is a is-ought problem.
You have not convinced me that there's not a is-ought problem.
So it's interesting. Hold on real quick. So it sounds to me like you're saying that because this earth is thriving and living, that the ultimate goal, whether or not there are people, is to be thriving and living. Is that what you're saying?
It's more that good and bad derives from us living beings. So good and bad is always a quality we attribute to our life.
And
so then if there were no people, then would good and bad exist?
If there were no consciousness, then there would be no good and bad, yes.
I said if there were no people.
Well, there could be aliens who have ethics.
Okay, so you're saying that there could be aliens that have ethics that could still keep good and bad alive if people would let it die. But what if there were no aliens? Okay, so then, let's go with consciousness. Let's say there's no consciousness. Then would good and bad go away?
Consciousness, good, bad go away? Yes, with consciousness, there is no consciousness, there is also no good and bad, because good and bad is just a concept of us, an ideal we make up, an abstract.
Well, but the reason that I'm confused is because, there was a time before people and consciousness on this planet.
Sure.
So when do you think good and bad came about? I mean, so do you think...
That's there was also a time before mathematics, Yeah. But math ruled the universe ever since, and we just found it out. And that's the same for ethics, basically, for me.
So because there are people, that means that there are good and bad... it's interesting.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're wrong. I was just trying to follow.
Yeah, just exploring it. It's a kind of a fun, rabbit trail. But Theo, I feel like we're starting to go in circles.
Yeah.
But this was a fun conversation, and I'm glad you're having it. Challenge people. Cool. Get people talking about it. Get people thinking about why they do what they do. I like it. As long as it's respectful, caring, and respecting, people's autonomy and humanity, I'm happy. So take care, brother.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the kind of conversations I like to have. Sorry, I kind of took it off topic a little bit. That's the kind of conversations I like to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go with David in North Dakota. David.
Hi, David.
Hello.
Hi. What would
you guys?
Really good.
Really well. Yeah, the caffeine is just now starting to kick in. So better by the second. What did you want to talk about today?
Well, I wanted to ask you guys, because I have some conversations with atheists on comment sections, which I know isn't the best place to obviously have these kinds of conversations, but I try and keep it respectful even there if I can, obviously, but it's not always reciprocated. But the question that I try and ask people that I don't feel like I've gotten at least a satisfactory answer is, and this is for you guys, but I know that you guys are atheists, and I know that you guys say you're open to hearing a different perspective, something that maybe could convince you otherwise of your belief. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think, what you guys know about yourselves, what do you guys think would be something that would convince you? Because what I kind of see is that I ask atheists to set a goalpost for what might convince them. Some of them just don't know, and I accept that's perfectly fine. But what I tend to see is that when you try and press them on a specific thing that would convince them, that's within reason, they tend to shy away from that, or they start moving the goalpost. And so it's kind of a twofold question. What do you think would convince you? And also, how do you know that you even want to be convinced in the first place?
How do you know that you want to be convinced?
So,
right. Like, for example,
go ahead.
Well,
I was going to jump in and say, if we say that the goal is to know as many true things and as few false things as possible, then we can go from there, right? And it doesn't matter where it takes you, so long as that goal is to know as many true things and as few false things as possible. So let's start there. So, David,
Okay.
when you say convinced, there are different ways people say convinced, and I've talked to a lot of Christians and a lot of just overall theists who said, what would it take to convince you? And
Sure.
because they're different people, they have different definitions of convince. And so sometimes people will say, well, how can I convince you with absolute certainty, 100%, that God exists? And my response there is, I can't tell you with 100% certainty that I exist. So we need to change that. Otherwise, that's something that's just not going to work. So,
well, why aren't you convinced that you exist? I mean, I'm convinced that you exist.
Well, that's
awesome.
I've
never met you, and but
so what I take, and when I say convinced, I mean I cannot tell you with absolute certainty 100% that I exist. Because I don't have that 100% certainty in anything. And the reason I don't have 100% certainty in anything is because when I do, I stop investigating. I go, I have the answer, I'm stopping investigating. So everything is tentative. You know, what you have is this sliding scale. And on this scale is, everything that you understand and know about the world that is informing your opinions on things and what you accept as true. And so as more evidence stacks up, you kind of go, okay, this is more and more likely to be true. And so I can give you an example, right? When you say God, you're talking about something that has a whole bunch of different characteristics and different things that people said it did.
Sure.
But if we took it a piece at a time, I think we could get there. So let's start with intercessory prayer, right? So if you were to show with it very significantly, if you pray for healing medically, or if you pray for that raise at work, and you were to test for it and show that, hey, you know what, 80% of the time when you pray, it happens, against the placebo, which is much lower, right? You can actually test for it and go, okay, does intercessory prayer work? Does it matter if maybe I'm praying to one God or another? Okay, so let's say, for example, that if you pray to the Abrahamic God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, in a certain Christian denomination, all of a sudden it goes up to 99%. Everything you ask for, it's like saying a magic spell. I'm praying for it, and it's happening. Well, then I could go, hey, there's evidence to point toward this religion specifically because of intercessory prayer. I don't know if it's true with everything else, but I can definitely show that intercessory prayer is happening. So what I would do is start praying. And I'd pray in that way because I would go, okay, here's where the evidence has reliably every single time pointed out. Okay, so let's go with the next God characteristic and go down the list. And if we were to hammer out the omnis, if we were to, go and find the tomb of Jesus with some kind of, I'm not an archaeologist. I don't know what it would take as far as that's concerned. But if you were to, I don't know, create a time machine, bring me back, and we both saw Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. I always mispronounce the word. Gethsemane?
Gethsemane, I got you.
Gethsemane. Right. If we were to go there, if we were to see Jesus walking on water, if we were to see, Saul on the road to Damascus and actually see scales cover his eyes, those things would really have an impact because then you would be providing evidence and proof. But we're nowhere near that.
Well,
and
I would say, I guess. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. This is your show. Go ahead.
Sorry. So when I think about how old this claim is, any of these gods, they're old, right? They're thousands of years old, no matter which one you pick. And I think about how positive I can be that anybody that's alive today is exactly who I'm told that they are. Like, for example, I think about somebody that's well-known, let's say Donald Trump. You could ask somebody today, is Donald Trump a good guy? And you can find people who will say, yes, absolutely. And you can ask, do you think that Donald Trump's a bad guy? And you will find people who will say, yes, absolutely. So let's go forward 2,000 years. and say, how do we know if he's a good guy or a bad guy? And it's like, well, I mean, I don't know how you can get to that today necessarily, because it just depends on who you ask. Does that make sense?
I think, yeah. Well, and this was something that I was going to kind of mention before you started going, but I was going to say, well, going back to the conviction part or convinced part, I'm sorry. Because, well, the example I was going to give was like, for example, like, I asked about the convincing part because, and the reason why I asked how do you know that you want to be convinced in the first place is because I was actually going to give flat earthers as an example. We do have all this evidence that shows and supports, that the Earth is not round, but spheroid. Technically, is the technically correct term because it's not obviously perfectly round, but
oblate spheroid.
I don't think. What's that?
Oblate spheroid.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. You can tell I'm not a scientist, so I don't know these terms. I just know like half of it or whatever. But I honestly wouldn't say that these people are so dense that that a rocket ship to orbit wouldn't convince them. Although that is possible, but we do have all this overwhelming evidence to support the absolute object positive that the Earth is in fact round without a rocket ship. And but people will still defend the fact that they think that the Earth is flat. And they seem to, I'm not saying you guys are, but I'm just saying from my perspective, it just kind of seems like they they're not pretend, but they think that they're being open-minded, I guess. Sure. But you present them all as evidence, but nothing convinces them. And the point that I'm trying to make is that, I guess at the end of the day, somebody out there is correct. It's either the atheist or the theist. And my point, I guess, is just that, I don't even like using the word being convinced because that's a personal feeling towards something. Mm-hmm. And I think the facts at the end of the day is what truly matters. I may not be convinced that you're right. You may not be convinced that that I'm right. But at the end of the day, we still agree that there is an objective truth and that our personal feelings don't necessarily interpret or determine what is objectively true.
Agreed. So at the end of the day, either a God exists or a God does not exist. It is one of those two. Right.
But the reason that I bring up somebody like somebody that's alive today is because when somebody tries to convince me that Jesus is not only real, but he's the good guy. And not only is he the good guy, but he's a superhero good guy. And, it's like when you add on all these different claims on top of somebody that, I can't even verify the first thing. I can't even verify for absolutely certain that he even was real. He could have been a storybook character. He could have been based on somebody that's real. I don't know. And so it's like, Okay.
And so but you were saying, I'm sorry, we're kind of bouncing back a little bit, but
sorry.
No, I'm bouncing it actually. Okay. that's on me, not you.
Okay.
I kind of want to bounce back just a little bit. You were saying you can you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You can give them all this evidence, but they're going to accept it or not accept it, right?
Right.
Is bad evidence convincing? I would say no.
Well, if we're talking about God, and we, if you just entertain the hypothetical from your perspective that God could exist, the evidence, and this is something that are you familiar with an apologist named Frank Turk? I'm guessing who he is.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, he's kind of mentioned this. He said it's the whole good and evil thing. The bad evidence in this situation would be evil because we see that there is evil. Because evil is kind of a metaphorical shadow of good. The sunlight can exist without shadows, but the shadows can't exist without sunlight. So even though it would be technically considered bad evidence, and that actually is something that I see a lot of atheists saying, if God exists, then why does evil exist? But that is bad evidence. But the bad evidence is still good evidence because it reflects.
No, it's not. So look up the Raven paradox on YouTube. I saw a video that actually really, really explained that, the Raven paradox. Essentially,
let me type this in here real quick.
Yeah. Essentially, what you have is, let's say you want to show that I had oatmeal for breakfast. And you go, Eric is wearing a red shirt. That is evidence to support that Eric had oatmeal for breakfast. And then we went through everything in the room. That chair is right there. And I know that Eric ate oatmeal for breakfast because that chair is right there. It doesn't matter how much bad evidence you bring. If it's crap evidence, the aggregate of crap evidence is still crap evidence.
But I gave you so much.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, we can stack it from here to the moon. And if it's crap evidence, it's crap evidence. It actually needs to be relevant.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you say gave me a theological argument for the existence of God, and I walked through it with you, and I showed you, hey, you know what? Here's why there's a fundamental misunderstanding and a breakdown, because what you're doing is operating on an assumption. And if you see that, you'd realize that there is zero amount of aggregate that's going to make that evidence more convincing. It's just crap evidence. And so I'm not saying, therefore, you're wrong. I would say, throw out that argument, because that one's not convincing. Don't stick it in a pile and hope it gets better because you buried it with others. Mm-hmm. Either it's going to stand or fall on its own merits. And if it falls on its own merits, the aggregate of shit is still shit.
That's true. Okay. I actually, well, let me, I think I see what you're saying now. I would like to kind of retract that. I guess I wouldn't necessarily then say that evil is crap evidence. I would actually then, I would retract that last statement and say that actually I do think that evil would be considered good evidence. You know, like if, I don't know.
You're assuming evil exists.
Let's just assume that you gave us a really good argument. Even if we granted it, that argument needs to stand or fall on its own merits.
Sure.
And so long as we both agree to that, then it's just a matter of whatever it is we're talking about that day. I'm glad that we came to this conclusion, because there are plenty of people. There's actually a guy who comes in who's Catholic, who's incredibly sweet, really nice guy. And he comes in every few weeks, and he and I sit down and we talk, and he is absolutely convinced that the monumental amount of Christian apologetics proves without a shadow of a doubt that his religion is true. And so we've gone through and we've talked about so many of them. And I've sat and I've said, why are you still counting on a bad argument? And he goes, well, because when you put it together with all the others, then it's good. No, it's just a mountain of shit now. It's not good. It's just now in a pile of bad.
Okay, so what would be, well, because now we're talking about what's good and bad evidence. I mean, I haven't heard obviously I haven't heard all the arguments. I mean, I'm trying to, I'm trying to listen to both sides, but obviously I'm more biased towards the Christian side, so I obviously listen to more. But I guess my question for what you just said there is, trying to get my thoughts here. Okay, so so you just mentioned good and evil. We're not sure, but now we're talking about good and bad evidence. Well, how do we know that there is good and bad evidence?
Sure.
Then?
So
how do you justify?
Yeah,
I guess
because we're talking about something definitional. We're actually talking about the meanings that we give to words so that we can parse these things. And so when I talk about good evidence, I'm talking about evidence that discreetly points toward one thing over another, right? One conclusion over another. So there were fingerprints at the scene of the crime. None of them were mine. That is not evidence that I was there, and it's not evidence that I wasn't there. That's bad evidence in that case that you're trying to say that I was at the crime. If my fingerprints are at the crime scene, that is evidence that I was there. That's good evidence, because that is discreetly pointing toward one over the other. It's not, I don't know. It's, hey, here is something pointing towards a specific conclusion. That's good evidence. Eric is wearing a red shirt, therefore he had oatmeal this morning, is bad evidence. And we're saying that because we're trying to determine what is and isn't pointing towards a reasonable conclusion.
Now, if he had oatmeal on his shirt.
There we go, yeah.
Then we might have better evidence.
Yeah, and that would actually
And it wouldn't even be evidence that he had breakfast. It could be evidence that I had breakfast and spilled it on him.
Absolutely.
But we have better evidence than he has a red shirt on, therefore he had oatmeal. It's better if he has it on him. It's even better if we find, the bowl that he used. And it's even better if we have a video camera that recorded him eating oatmeal and a date stamped on it. So there's levels of evidence. There's really bad, there's better, there's best, So if you have a lot of really good evidence, that's a lot better than a lot of really bad evidence.
Actually, I'd go even further and say it's either it points to it or it doesn't.
Right.
And so if it points to it,
okay,
it's technically good evidence. That doesn't mean it's convincing.
Right.
But if it does not point to it, it will never
dismiss it.
Yeah. You can't get less bad than absolutely irrelevant.
Right.
And so, yeah. Does that help?
Okay. Now, yeah. Well,
good.
So I know that this is kind of like, I think this is the correct term, and actually I even got into an argument over this. This is when we're talking about the kind of evidence, the singular, things that can only happen once. And you can't cite and repeat this. That's called forensics. Is that correct?
Oh man, dude. But I'm just gonna.
I'm sure I get the right term.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm just gonna follow you on here because right now I'm not. So are you talking about forensic, like going through searching for fingerprints, that kind of thing? Yeah, that's forensics.
Yeah, like the kind of like like the murder happened. You can't repeat and test the murder. Therefore, you have to go off of the evidence that exists to try and prove whether or not someone is innocent or guilty.
Right. And then you get Lee Strobel. Sorry.
It's okay. I think it's called a singular. I think it's called forensic evidence. Well, I don't know what the technical term is, but whatever that kind of evidence is, I mean, okay. So we obviously agree that if Jesus existed, if he is who he claimed to be, and all the things that you speak of in the Bible, where Jesus said that people would perform miracles in my name and all that stuff. So if we were seeing that today, then would that be at least a good piece of information for you guys that would maybe start causing you, or maybe not causing you, but having you maybe look at this differently and say, like, oh, maybe there's something here? So
I think a bit of information to give you, at least about me personally, is I went into this hoping to prove it right. I went into this as a Christian with a bent toward proving it right.
So did I.
Right.
And so I was biased in your direction.
Me too.
And we got here. So.
Okay. Well, initially when I called you guys, this is actually one of the things that I did want to ask you about, but you wanted me to be more specific. I actually called and asked, I wanted to actually ask you guys personally what, not like your entire life story, but, how did you guys get involved in the church? And then we kind of did things in reverse order, ironically, because I called wanting to ask you guys that first and then see where things went from there. Yeah. But now it looks like we're actually kind of going backwards. Because I don't know anything about your guys' church history or whatever.
Well, maybe you can call back and we can finish this another time because we've got a couple more callers left. And
yeah.
But we'd love to continue this conversation. Yeah. Absolutely.
Sure.
And also, if you want to know my backstory, I think the most thorough story about my life that I've done was an interview on Neil, the 604 Atheists channel. So you can go there. We all ended up crying. I shared way more of myself than I had any intention to. But if you want to learn about me, that'll help. And
I actually just did my deconversion story in a conversation with Matt Dillahunty on his channel. So if you want to look up Atheist Debates, it's on his channel. Mm-hmm.
Can you guys give me I have my note thing here. I want to take the notes. So Eric, where did you say you could find your video?
Oh, Neil, the 604 Atheist.
Neil 604 Atheist. And then Jenna, what was yours?
It's called A Conversation with Jenna Belk, and it's under Atheist Debates or Matt Dillahunty's channel. So you could look up either one and find it, I'm sure.
Yeah. But I think with that, we're going to head on over to the next call, all right?
Thanks for calling. That was a fun talk.
Taking my call.
Thank you. Take care. Yeah. Okay. Brealzibub. tried calling in last week, but then we lost all of the lines.
Oh, no.
And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm usually not a big fan of pseudonyms, but Brealzibub is kind of fun. Yeah. It is. Brealzibub, you're live.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hey.
I'm not going to try to pronounce your name.
Is it Brealzibub?
Brealzibub.
Brealzibub.
Brealzibub. Oh, I actually like that.
See, I like that less now.
Oh.
I thought it was like be real. Okay, fine. Brealzibub. Okay. So, B, what do you want to talk about today?
So just this is all musings, tentatively held, but I don't know. Just I want to redefine the term soul.
Why?
I know like it has a lot of baggage, but
So, do you think that giving it another definition would give it less baggage?
I feel like it'll be better understood if I could just like give a quick idea of how I'm gonna like talk about it, I guess.
Well,
We're just curious why.
Yeah, because
Before we get into the explanation.
Yeah, like you can give a really awesome definition, and your definition of a soul, but that is useful only when we're talking to Brealzibub. But when we're talking to the rest of the world who doesn't know your definition, it's going to just confuse things, and I'm probably going to use their definition because I want to make sure that I'm effectively communicating with them. So I guess the first kind of barrier to entry that I'm going to say is, what is this accomplishing? How is this helping us have a more nuanced conversation?
I'm just basically using soul for lack of a better word.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, then, what's your definition? Just the definition for it.
So, easiest way to explain is I see soul as basically an external hard drive of archaic experiences.
Okay.
Like it's not a fully
human experiences?
Yeah.
Is that a thing that exists?
So the idea it's kind of like on the idea of rebirth.
Yeah, I am so lost. Help me. Number one,
so
I guess the first question is there in existence in this universe that we are in together an external hard drive of human experiences?
Okay, maybe I did.
Well, this is a yes or no.
That just makes sense.
Or I don't know. Is this a thing that exists?
I feel like I'm explaining everything so badly.
Oh, no, it's okay. Take your
okay.
time. We're
Yeah.
just trying to figure out what you're trying to say. That's all.
Yeah, and also I don't want to go down a rabbit hole and then it not be worth the time.
Right.
So if you can answer that first, is there an external hard drive of human experiences in this universe? Yes or no? Because you're arguing
not
that
just one. Yeah, it's not a singular hard drive.
Okay, there's more than one hard drive of. Are you talking about our brains? Because that's not external. That would be internal. External as I'm explaining in like a computer term that an external hard drive is something you can pull from the computer and pass on. Right.
Can you pull anything from us and pass it on?
Not one that.
I mean, if you're talking about this YouTube video being watched after we die, okay. But again, I wouldn't call it my soul or a soul.
Yeah. Here, I will. Let me see if I can run through this real quick. I feel like a quote unquote air quotes soul is like it has a symbiotic relationship with human beings.
Okay,
wait,
hold on.
Kind of
hold on.
Different things.
Stop. Hold on. A symbiotic relationship is a thing that exists. I can show that there are gut bacteria that can only exist within my gut. That is a symbiotic relationship because it does something that helps me. There are parasites and different animals that live in symbiotic relationship with each other because they're mutually beneficial for each other's existence, and we can show it. So you're saying that a thing that exists, I don't want to know what it does. Just show me that it's there first. Do you get what I mean? Like...
Oh, I'm aware. This is why these are musings and these are held tentatively.
Okay.
I feel like I have a deep, like I'm an artist, so these are just deep thoughts that go on in my brain.
Then once you get evidence for it, call into the show. We want to be able to have conversations about things. And this is more of, we're hearing your musings. So when you have evidence for it and you can support it, call in. But if this is just, I don't, and I just kind of want to, this isn't really the show for that. I'm sorry.
I know. I just wanted to run through the whole thing.
No,
I feel like it makes so much more sense if I actually fully explain.
So that's not how words work. We're
so the thing
we're
is that
pointing towards clarity, not against clarity. We're trying to make things better, not worse.
People can call the show with, an explanation of why they believe in a God. But what our job is, while you're going through your explanation, our job is to kind of dissect it and figure out what's going on. And so it's we can't even get past this first hurdle on this specific thing. So let maybe just take a little more time and try to figure out if you have something a little bit more tangible, and then we can start from there, and then we can maybe get to your whole long thing.
Yes. But we're glad that you called.
I feel like it is something that totally can be not proven in this time because we are still learning so much about the brain. It could potentially be a thing.
Okay, then once we can test for it and determine whether or not it's in existence, we can go from there. But until then, I would argue that giving a definition for a thing and changing the definition of something that's already in existence to something that is amorphous and unprovable is not beneficial.
Yeah, it was the idea that soul is always related to personality and the core of someone's being.
Sure. And if we understand... Well, if we understand that about you and how you use that term, then we can have that nuanced conversation with you. But getting other people to accept that when they already have working definitions that they support, that's an uphill climb. I'm not trying to be, prescriptivist about it. I'm just trying to...
I don't see any benefit from it.
Yeah. But we are getting short on time, but we're glad that you called. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Yep. Call us back if you come up with a little bit of evidence.
Yeah. All right. So let's go with, you want to do Jesse and then Mike?
Sure.
All right. Jesse, you're
Hi,
live
Jesse.
with Eric and Jenna. Hey.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good,
pretty good.
I should not have asked that. It's a whole meme about people that ask that.
Oh, it's okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to address, I know that Jenna, I put a thing on your page that had a thing with, there's a meme that had to do with Jesus.
Oh, you're Jesse. Hi.
Yeah.
This is a friend of mine from Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Online.
Hi, Jesse.
Eric, I love you.
Aww. Yay.
Love you guys together. I was listening to you guys talking, and it was just, I've gone through years of therapy, and I was like, you guys are hitting it right on the head.
Aw, that's good to hear.
Thank you. We really appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And anyway, Jen, I wanted to talk about I put that meme about Jesus, and then how, everybody was, fighting over it in the comments underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
Just.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Just remember, thousands of people are watching this. Let's make sure that everybody's in on the story. What's going on?
Oh, no. It was just a Jesus comment. And I didn't leave anything out, just that people were fighting over the meme about it. And there were theists and atheists. And it was that the theists for the most part, were the most violent. And the atheists were just sort of like calm and like, yeah, whatever, dude. And then the theists were like, I'll beat you to a bloody pulp. And it was just like, wow. And it was like, all this in the name of love.
Yeah.
So your question is, how do we get around that?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's got to be some way to do it in a way that we can all just get along,
Yeah.
And
so,
and the thing is, with a lot of atheists, myself included, is just that, it's just so annoying because we've been manipulated for so long that there's just a lot of animosity there.
So Jesse,
Yeah.
It's up to you to be an example. The fact is you can't choose for other people, but if you can be a part of making it better by making sure that your interactions are better, then in that way you've helped some small bit. And if you can lead by example, do so. I'll give you an example. I have a Christian apologist sleeping on my couch this weekend.
Okay, cool.
His name's Dean. He's in the studio audience. Hey, Dean. Dean actually came out here to teach a class on apologetics yesterday. And we agree on a lot of things. Those things having to do with how we treat each other, what we care about, how we should treat other people in society. And we disagree on the deep philosophy, but we're able to have those conversations. So much so that he's actually a friend, and I trust him to a degree. He's a really cool dude. And because of that, I want to have more discussions with him. And, small self-plug, those discussions are going to be on my channel to be released. The more that we can interact and the more that we can show, hey, we can have these mutually beneficial discussions that are kind and are patient and are practicing a good degree of not just rationality, but you're giving them the benefit of the doubt. Being charitably listening. When you can do that and you can show that, that's how we're going to start getting change. And the other piece is, dude, when you're talking to people online, you're going to get keyboard warriors. It's going to happen. When, the benefit of anonymity and the benefit of not talking to somebody's face is huge. And I'm kind of coming to the conclusion that that's just how people are. When they think they can hide in anonymity or don't have to meet someone face to face or don't have to deal with the consequences of the crappy things they say, they're going to say crappy stuff. That doesn't mean that that's indicative about how we treat each other. It's indicative about how shitty online interactions can be.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting that you say that, because the person that was going to, quote, beat someone to a bloody pulp is someone that I've known since the early 80s. Now, I seriously don't think that he would do that if it was in real life. But the thing is that he was saying that to someone that said things a lot less than I have said to him online before. And we've talked online about this before.
Yeah, that sounds like a perfect example.
Real quick.
I've said a lot worse.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry, real quick, I just wanted to say that in my experience with having to talk with certain family members, that some of them have come off extremely hostile to me, and what y'all get to see right now is people being really nice to me. So it's a lot harder to keep yourself calm and collected when you're being verbally attacked, and especially when it's over online and you can't just stop the conversation. It's ongoing. And so what I've learned is that sometimes you can't get through to them, but the times that I have actually made any progress was when I stopped just battling them and just going back and forth and responding to the little quips that they made and just be like, hey, I'm trying to have an honest conversation here, and if you want to, call names and you want to try to condescend to me, then maybe we can try again later. Or, just call them out in a very calm, respectful, honest way and say, this is what you're doing and this is what I'm trying to do. How can we move forward?
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that's given me success with those family members so far.
That's awesome.
Right.
I've ever since doing this show, I've been getting tagged in on every single argument people have with their crappy uncle. And so I no longer do it. I just, it killed
I think
me.
it depends on the person, you know? And
Yeah.
so I have one family member that I will still engage with because I called them out and they stopped. They realized what they were doing and we started having a conversation. Granted, it's not great. We're not bowling every night. But, you know, then there's another relationship with a person who has straight up told me, I don't respect you, so I'm not going to listen to the words that come out of your mouth. And with that person, I'm like, okay, well, then you're not going to hear words coming out of my mouth to you anymore, so we're done.
Right.
So with that said, I think we're going to move on to the next caller. We're running low on time, but hopefully that helped.
Thank you so much for calling, Jesse. It's nice to talk to you.
Great talk with you, Jenna. Great talk with you, Eric. Take care.
You too, buddy. All right. Mike in Alaska.
Hi, Mike.
Hello.
Hey, so I am currently a theist, but going through a crisis of faith over the last year and a half. I've taken on a lot of changes in my life because I got tired of, I was at the point, and I guess I should preface, I am on medication. I have been seeing a therapist, and I'm not in any immediate danger, so
that's good.
Okay,
everything's good. But
and I'm glad
I was at the point where I didn't see a point in this life if there is an afterlife, you know, like everything just seemed to be shitty, and I just didn't see the point, you know. So I've gotten past that, but once Trump hit the world, you know, I thought for sure I knew how my family members and people that highly respected, I thought I'd be on the same page, and I guess it all started from that point. So I started looking into why I believe what I believe, which I'm the son of a Methodist minister. He's been in the ministry since mid-90s, and I'm in my early 30s now. Okay. Every time I thought something was wrong, my default response was always, what's the most loving approach I can give? And because of that, even within my own community, you know, I didn't always agree with people, whether it was, you know, pick a hot button topic like abortion, homosexuality. Those are enough to fill endless bickering between people. But whether or not I agreed with something, I just focused on loving the person and getting them whatever they needed. And I thought for sure I knew how my father would be in regards to homosexuality. And I am not, but that's irrelevant to my point. Mm-hmm. I started getting the messages of love the sinner, hate the sin. And I flipping hate that comment, but it's another rabbit hole. So I finally got to personal experiences. I'm like, okay, I can debate with someone or ask questions about, you know, evolution versus creationism, and not seeing, you know, either one of us like coming to a new understanding. I personally side on the evolutionist side. I believe in science, which almost every turn seems to conflict with what I've been raised on. I am kind of the black sheep of the family because I was born and raised in Indiana. I'm using this name because I am actually terrified that family members would somehow stumble across this, because they have absolutely no idea that I've been pretty much living a private life where I can't come out to them with these questions because of fear of being alone.
Right.
And I'm sure I'll get there at some point in my life, but I'm not there yet. And I keep reflecting on all these personal experiences that I've had growing up, where I thought I witnessed prophecy happen from, you know, some speaker in a church predicted something. I thought I saw it happen. There was a couple of car wrecks where I could have sworn I saw some sort of angelic deity, which now I guess maybe it was a hallucination from what I've, you know, been told. When I was younger, I thought I had seen spiritual entities in person. Of course, I didn't have any witnesses or proof to back these claims up. So I took it again on faith.
Well, and not only that, Mike, but it doesn't even have to be a hallucination. It could just be misremembering.
Yeah.
I've seen people who will go into a situation where they're like, we're going to have a spiritual experience. Mm-hmm. And then they walk out, and if you were to ask them immediately what happened, they will, nothing really happened. But give it a week, and somebody will go, oh, did you feel that cold wind that came through? It chilled me. And then, oh yeah, no, I totally remember that. And then it goes through, and then about a year later, all of a sudden oh yeah, I totally remember there was stuff going on. Give it 10, 20 years, they go back and they're like, yeah, but do you remember we flew? Right. It was, how could you explain that? And they're not lying. Memory is just unreliable.
There's a documentary on Netflix called Brain Games that I think could be really helpful because it shows you in many different ways how easy it is to trick your brain. Yeah. It's all kinds of optical illusions and magic tricks and stuff, and it shows you how many different ways you can be very, very wrong and think you're right. And it's because you saw something or you didn't see something, and you're like, no, it wasn't there. And then they'll replay it in a different way, and you're like, oh, it was.
Yeah, and I guess I'll watch that, and hopefully something will click with me that I'm like, okay, that makes more sense. Just
maybe. And in addition, maybe it'll help.
Experiences,
I thought that I had seen a ghost up until very recently. I had been very, very convinced that when I was like 8 or 9, was lying in my bed and woke up in the middle of the night and saw a ghost and was scared half to death, turned over, started saying the Hail Mary with my eyes closed and the blankets over my head, and went to sleep afraid that the ghost was going to come and get me. And then I woke up the next day and told everybody I saw a ghost, and my mom said, no, you didn't. And I was like, yes, I did. And then just went about the rest of my life telling people that I'd seen a ghost in the house that I grew up in was haunted. And then I became a skeptic. And I was like, you know what? Thinking back, I probably was dreaming.
Or pareidolia.
Or what is that?
Pareidolia. So
I don't know what that is.
I will explain that actually off the call because we are hitting that hard wall.
Okay.
But I will explain it. Mike, thank you for calling in. I'm sorry that we didn't have a whole lot of time to talk. Feel free to call in next week, okay?
Okay.
Please
try
call.
to get in.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
and I'm actually going to pop you on hold instead of hanging up. For those in the back, could we try and get him in touch with the Discord? Because I think this would be a really, really good example of people being able to hop in and talk about it. So I'm popping you on hold, Mike. Pareidolia. So think of early, primate kind of humanity. Mm-hmm. Being around the fire and you thought you saw a face in the bushes. Right. You thought you heard a rattle. You run. If you ran and it wasn't anything, okay, that was kind of silly. But if that's a whole lot better than you didn't run because then you got eaten.
Right.
We have this inbuilt mechanic where we see faces in things where there are no faces. We're constantly looking for patterns. We're pattern-making machines. And so the reason we can look at the clouds and point out all the different things we see is because that creativity, that trying to see things, especially in the dark, is something that is in all humans, that is just a part of us, and it's just a very common phenomenon. But with that said, can we get a camera to the back room? Hey! I want to say thank you so much. This is our crew. We could not do this without you. Thank you so much. I want to thank the live studio audience for coming out.
Yay!
Jenna, this was another awesome episode. I'm so glad that you came.
Thank you for inviting me.
So you remember the outro, right? How to do it?
Yeah.
All right. So to those of you who don't believe,
we don't hate you.
What? No. Those are the people who do.
Oh, for the people who
skeptics
don't.
For atheists like us, find us on Discord. Find us on Facebook. Check out our Reddit. And if you're in the Austin area, drop on by. This is your community. And we're trying to make this a kind of community where it doesn't matter where you are, because we're lucky enough to be able to do this online. So this is your community. We're happy that you're here. But if you do believe, we don't hate you.
We just think you're wrong.